Well, thanks very much, Neil. That's certainly quite an introduction to try to live up to, which there isn't much hope of. So yeah, I'm John from Jade Software, and I just want to say what a pleasure it is to have been given the opportunity to say a few words and share some thoughts around creative innovation. I guess like many of your companies, Jade has quite a strong and proud heritage in the sort of technology and engineering part of the thing. We've been doing that for more than 30 years. And of course, many of you will be aware that ICT years are actually pretty much the same as dog years. So you can think of us as being around for something like 200 human years. Recently, we've been driving innovation through mashing up sort of creative right brain thinking with the more traditional technical and analytical left brain stuff that we think of within ICT. And this sort of started when we started moving our focus from engagements that were centred around systems to engagements that centre around customers. And that means that we lead now with user experience and designers rather than business analysts and systems analysts. And I guess what really interests me is the opportunity to move that sort of creative switch from upper level so that we start thinking about how we can apply creative and design thinking at the strategic level, how we think about creatively what we're doing rather than just how we're doing it. And so one of the things we've been trying, which has really been quite interesting, is an engagement with the University of Auckland Fine Arts Department. So we've actually been running workshops that have not just industry, not just technology people, but also fine arts graduates, so sculptors, painters, dancers, and that's a really interesting experience. And it's not just us that are saying this. IBM did a global study surveying a large number of CEOs across 60 plus countries, and the number one attribute that those CEOs identified was the most important thing to help navigate increasing uncertainty, volatility and complexity was creativity. So when we look at electricity and industry in particular, and I enjoyed very much the leaders' panel this morning, and for me they were talking a lot about customer engagement, and I think that's a critical thing, and it's an area where actually we can look at a lot of parallels across from other industries. So finance is an area where, for example, there are a lot of digital startups, an area where a lot of the Main Street banks are now being attacked by nimble, agile, customer-focused startups that don't have overheads, that can cherry-pick customers. Interesting sort of opportunities there, and it's all driven by digital. All driven by digital. And it's not just on the supply side. On the demand side, customers these days, and you will know this, customers, your children, my children, they talk about the PlayStation generation. And so the expectations of customers in terms of what it's like to do stuff, what it's like to interact digitally, are driven by that sort of experience. And of course, that's an experience being built by creatives, not by analysts. And so when they're confronted with something like, I hope there's no one from IRD here, if they were confronted by something like the IRD website, they're going to recoil in horror. Another trend that I think is interesting is in retail particularly, Omnichannel is very hot. So we see this thing where customers, whether they're dealing with web, mobile, email, call centres, or even like physically coming into a don't hit the mic, coming into a bricks and mortar establishment, expect you to know everything they've done, whatever channel they did it on. They expect to be able to start something in one channel, finish it in another, and they expect when you deal with them that you know everything about them and what they've been doing. So all our systems need to talk to each other. We need to get rid of manual processes. We need to make it smooth and integrated so that for the customer, it all just works. And getting that right obviously leads to deeper customer relationships. It makes the customers feel that you understand them and so they want to stay with you. It increases that customer stickiness. So I think in order to do that, creative innovation has a huge role to play. And when we talk about creative innovation, we're talking about stepping back from the problem and applying the sort of design thinking that we've been using, you know, in the sort of design and coming into ICT industry. And that involves concepts like, obviously, creativity, things like the ambidextrous thinking that I sort of alluded to earlier, the two sides of the mind, teamwork, user-centeredness, that whole empathy thing, curiosity, and my personal favourite is optimism. The world can be a great place. And so to design stuff that behaves like that, you need a mix of people. And that's what I was talking about earlier, like not just getting a whole bunch of analytical people in a room and saying, what can we pull out of the system? But actually stepping back, getting creative things, and running stuff with users so that we end up in an iterative cycle where we start off with problem definition, we start brainstorming how might we solve that, we prototype and try sort of temporary solutions, and then we iterate back round again and try again. And so user involvement and functionality is the key to all of this. And when we talk about design, we often think about elegance and beauty, but that has to be in the context of functionality and usability. In the, you know, the old saw, form does follow function. We don't want to end up with something that's beautiful but functionally useless, like, say, Paris Hilton or Green Party economic policy. Goethe famously said, architecture is frozen music, and I love that quote. Of course, handicapped as he was by operating in the 18th century, he was unable at the time to extend that to ICT. But I think we can equally apply that to solutions architecture and system architecture. ICT should creatively express your brand, your company, to delight, empower, and make the lives better of your staff and customers. And if it doesn't, it really should. And when we get this right, then it's just obviously right. It delights customers. It fills needs that they may not even be aware they had. It works because it's customer-centred, it's empathetic, and it solves a real problem or pain point. And it really does work. There's a reason why Apple makes more money from the iPhone than Microsoft does in its entirety. There's a rapidly changing world and a rapidly changing market with lots of keen, clever competitors. We're proud to be part of it. And I was interested this morning when Simon Bridges said New Zealand, and I believe this, New Zealand is world leading in terms of its market and competitive structure within electricity. We're number 2 or 3 in renewable energy. And for me, there's no reason why we shouldn't be globally leading in supporting technology. To learn, if you'd like to come and have a chat about creative innovation, we'd love to see you at the Jade booth. Feel free to stop by anytime tomorrow. But in the meantime, carry on, enjoy your dinner. Thanks for the time.